Sasuke spent his entire life believing that revenge would heal his pain. From a very young age, he learned that the world could be cruel, not in an abstract way, not as a distant idea, but in a direct, violent, and irreversible way. He learned that what we love is never guaranteed, that people can disappear without warning, that homes can turn into silent ruins. That laughter can be replaced by absence, that safety can dissolve in a matter of seconds. And when that happens, something breaks inside. It's not something visible, it's not something that bleeds on the outside, but it's something that changes everything. It changes how we see the world, how we trust, how we protect ourselves. When Sasuke lost his family, he didn't just lose people. He lost the ground beneath his feet. He lost his sense of safety. He lost the idea of a future. He lost the certainty that the world made sense. He lost his innocence. And when innocence dies too early, the soul enters survival mode. It no longer seeks joy. It no longer seeks connection. It seeks control. In the emptiness that followed, Sasuke made a silent decision. A decision that was never spoken out loud. A decision that didn't need explanation. But one that came to govern every step of his life. If love had failed, then hatred would become the new path. If trusting had caused pain, then closing his heart felt safer. For years, this gave meaning to his existence. Revenge became his identity, his direction, his purpose, his fuel to keep breathing when everything inside him wanted to stop. But there is something extremely dangerous about turning pain into a mission. Because little by little, suffering stops being something we want to heal and becomes something we feel the need to preserve. Pain turns into justification, into a shield, into armor, into an excuse to feel nothing but anger. Sasuke grew up believing that the day he took his revenge, everything would finally make sense, that the emptiness would disappear, that the weight would lift from his chest, that his soul would find rest. But there is a truth almost no one talks about. Hatred may keep us moving, but it never leads us to rest. It pushes, it accelerates, it shouts, it demands, but it never embraces. Throughout his journey, Sasuke distances himself from everyone. He breaks bonds, he breaks promises, he ignores warnings, he hurts those who still care, and not because he is evil, but because untreated pain hardens the heart. It makes us defensive, closed, reactive, always ready to strike before being hurt again. The closer he gets to revenge, the more isolated he becomes. Because hatred demands exclusivity. It shares no space with love, nor with friendship, nor with peace. Then comes the moment that should have changed everything. The moment that, in theory, would end the story. The instant when the past would finally make sense. The final punctuation of pain. Sasuke finally discovers the truth about Itachi. The brother he had hated his entire life had actually sacrificed himself for him. Itachi was not the villain. He was the shield. He was the one who carried the weight of the world's hatred so that Sasuke could live. He was the one who chose to be hated so that his brother would not be destroyed, so that evil would stop with him. This should have been the moment hatred collapsed, the moment the heart broke, not in anger, but in repentance, not in loss, but in truth. But something unexpected happens. Sasuke learns the truth, and still, he does not find peace. The emptiness remains. This reveals something profound about the human soul. Knowing the truth is not the same as allowing it to transform us. Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." But this freedom is not automatic. It does not happen simply because information arrives. It does not come from intellectual understanding. It requires an inner response. It requires surrender. Sasuke knows the truth, but he does not surrender to it. He does not allow it to heal his heart. Instead, he redirects his hatred. He changes the target but preserves the wound, because accepting the truth would mean accepting something even harder, accepting that all that suffering could not be justified by revenge, accepting that the pain had no fair ending, accepting that control was an illusion. And this is something many of us do as well. Sometimes we would rather remain wounded than admit that our pain led nowhere. We hold on to hatred because it gives us identity, because it makes us feel strong, because it protects us from vulnerability, because it keeps us from needing anyone. Sasuke did not want to be healed. He wanted to be right. And this is one of the greatest spiritual conflicts of the human heart. The Bible is filled with people who encountered the truth, but resisted it. People who heard the call, but refused to let go of control. People who chose hardness over transformation, because the truth does set free. But before it frees, it confronts, it dismantles, it exposes. Jesus never promised a comfortable path. He promised a true one. He never said forgiveness would be easy. He said it would be necessary. Sasuke sought justice with his own hands. He sought meaning in strength. He sought healing in hatred. But hatred never heals. It only numbs for a while. It distracts. It occupies the emptiness without filling it. Jesus, on the other hand, offers something hatred can never give: rest. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. This invitation is not for the strong. It is for the weary, for those who have fought too much, for those who have carried too much weight alone. Sasuke was weary, but he did not know how to rest, because rest requires surrender. And surrender feels like weakness to those who learn to survive by fighting, to those who learn that lowering their guard means dying. The cross of Christ is the opposite of revenge. It does not cry out for punishment. It cries out for forgiveness. It does not demand payment. It offers grace. It does not say, take justice into your own hands. It says, trust. Sasuke shows us what happens when someone refuses to trust. When they choose to carry alone a burden that was never meant to be carried alone, the emptiness remains. And perhaps that is why Sasuke's story resonates with so many people, because many of us know this emptiness. The emptiness of those who tried to win through strength, of those who tried to justify their pain, of those who tried to move forward without healing their heart. The Bible calls this a hardened heart, not an evil heart, but a heart exhausted from suffering. Jesus does not condemn that heart. He invites it. He does not force his way in. He knocks. Sasuke represents the human being who heard the truth, but was not yet ready to surrender to it. And that does not make him irredeemable, only human. Because redemption does not happen the moment truth arrives. It happens the moment pride falls, the moment control is released, the moment the heart surrenders. Maybe the emptiness you feel is not a lack of strength. Maybe it is not a lack of intelligence. Maybe it is not a lack of answers. Maybe it is a lack of surrender. Sasuke tried to fill the emptiness with revenge, with power, with control. But the emptiness remained. Jesus shows a different path, not the path of force, but the path of love that gives itself. Losing in order to gain, forgiving in order to be free, trusting in order to rest. That is the difference between knowing the truth and being set free by it. But there is something even deeper in this story, because Sasuke's problem was never just hatred. It was the way he began to see himself. The moment revenge became his purpose, he stopped seeing himself as someone who needed to be saved, and started seeing himself as someone who needed to win. He no longer sought healing. He sought justification. He did not want his pain resolved. He wanted it validated. And when that happens, something subtle changes inside us. Pain stops being a burden and becomes an identity. Sasuke no longer knew who he was without hatred. He did not know who he would be if he let go of revenge. He did not know how to live without an enemy to blame. Because letting go of hatred would mean facing the emptiness without anesthesia. And that is frightening. It is easier to fight than to feel, easier to attack than to cry, easier to harden than to admit we are broken. That is why, even after learning the truth about Itachi, Sasuke chooses to keep walking in the same direction. Not because the truth was insufficient, but because accepting it required humility. And humility is one of the greatest barriers of the human heart. The Bible calls this pride. Not loud, arrogant pride, but the quiet pride that says, I can handle this alone. I don't need help. I'll endure. This pride does not shout. It resists. It prevents surrender. It blocks rest. It delays healing. Jesus often confronted this kind of heart, not with violence, not with accusations, but with uncomfortable invitations. Whoever wants to follow me must deny themselves. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it. These words do not speak of weakness. They speak of surrender. Sasuke could not surrender because he spent his entire life believing that lowering his guard meant death. He learned that trust is expensive, that love exposes, that dependence hurts, and so he chose control. But control demands a high price. It isolates. It exhausts. It dries out the heart. The more Sasuke tries to control destiny, the more destiny slips through his fingers. The more he seeks justice, the farther he moves from peace. And that brings us to a difficult question. How many times do we do the exact same thing? How often do we say we want healing, when what we really want is to prove that we are right? How often do we say we want peace, but refuse to release control? Jesus never imposed healing. He always offered it. He never forced transformation. He always invited it, because love that forces is no longer love. That is why he says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. I do not break in. I do not invade. I knock." Sasuke heard many knocks throughout his journey, warnings, friendships, callings, but he was not yet ready to open the door. And perhaps this is the most honest part of the story. Not everyone surrenders at the first call. Not every truth is accepted the first time it is heard. God works through processes, through time, through winding paths. Sasuke is not an example of someone lost forever. He is a portrait of someone in conflict. And conflict is not the end of the story. It is the middle. Redemption never begins with strength. It begins with weariness. When fighting no longer makes sense. When winning no longer fills the void. When hatred can no longer sustain us. Jesus calls this moment rest. Not physical rest, but rest for the soul. Rest from proving, from justifying, from controlling. Maybe that is what Sasuke had not yet learned. And maybe that is what many of us still resist learning. That we do not have to carry everything alone. That we do not have to turn pain into a mission. That we do not have to win in order to be loved. The cross teaches us something hatred never can. That true strength is not found in harming, but in surrendering. That losing can be winning. That forgiving can set us free. That trusting can heal. Sasuke tried to fill the emptiness with power, with control, with revenge. But the emptiness remained. Because the emptiness born from loss is not filled with strength. It is filled with love. And that love is not weak. It is transformative. Jesus did not call the strong. He called the weary. He did not call those who had all the answers. He called those who could no longer carry the weight alone. Maybe the emptiness you feel today is not a sign of weakness. Maybe it is an invitation to let go, to trust, to rest. That is the difference between knowing the truth and being set free by it. And perhaps that is why stories like Sasuke's move us so deeply, because in some way we are all trying to learn the same thing, that winning does not always heal, but love does. Here on Evolua, we use stories to touch eternal truths, because sometimes it is through the journey of a fictional character that we finally find the courage to face our own. Think about that.